Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to talk about VPC endpoint. So what's a VPC endpoint? Well, if you have a look at our existing VPC diagram, so we've got our instance which is sitting in our private subnet. It's at 10.0.2.0 and it is behind a NAT gateway now. So if we wanted it to send files up to S3, it could definitely do that. It would need a role to be able to communicate to S3, which we're going to go in and add in a second. But the issue is that when the NAT gateway sends the files, it's going to traverse the internet. It's going to go to a public endpoint, public API endpoint. Now, what if there was a way to do this internally so that this traffic never had to go out of the NAT gateway? What if it could go directly to S3? And essentially what we're going to do is create a gateway, an internal gateway. So instead of it going out into a NAT gateway, it's going to go over to an internal gateway and then directly into S3. So let's go ahead and create this now. Okay, so I'm in Identity Access Management. Okay, so I'm in the AWS console. I need to go over to IAM and I'm going to go ahead and create a role. And so I'm going to go here and hit create role, and then we're going to create this role for EC2, and we're going to allow EC2 instances to call AWS services on our behalf. Then in here, what we're going to do is just type in S3 administrator or full access and go ahead and click in there and hit next review. And then just call the role S3 admin, something like that. Keep it nice and simple and go ahead and create the role. I have already actually created one earlier. You can see it here, S3 admin access. It has exactly the same role, so I can use either. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to EC2. For those of you that don't know, you can now obviously go in and basically provision a role on the fly. So you can attach a role to an EC2 instance without having to destroy it and re-provision it. You never used to be able to do that, but you can now. So the way we do that is we go over to Actions, and then we go to Instance Settings, and we go Attach, Replace IAM Role. And then let's go in and grab our S3 role and go ahead and attach. And you can see that operation has succeeded. The next thing we just want to do is go over to VPC. So let's go up to Services and go to VPC under Networking and Content Delivery. And let's go over to our Network Access Control List in here. Now, if you remember, we created a web NACL. And by default, we allowed inbound and outbound rules. Just to keep everything simple, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to my default network access control list, and I'm going to go and associate my subnet, my public subnet, with this. So go ahead and hit save. That way they're all on the same NACL and I'm not having to manage two. We're just wanting to keep it simple for this lab. I don't want network access controllers to get in the way. So they're all back on the default one now. So what we need to do now is we need to go back over to EC2, and we're going to need to SSH into our public instance, and then we'll SSH into our private instance. Okay, so here I am on my public web server. You can see 10.0.1.242. If I type in ls, you can see my private key is there. Yes, I know this is not best practice. I'm just doing this as a demo. It saves me a lot of time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to SSH into my other instance. So I should have it in my bash history. So I'm going to go to 10.0.2.143 using this private key, and that has now logged me into my private instance. I'm going to elevate my privileges to root, and I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. And now I'm going to type in AWS S3 LS. And we can see that it's working. Now, if I was to shut down my NAT gateway, this wouldn't work. It's going out to the internet now. So why don't we do that? Why don't we go ahead and shut down our NAT gateway? And in fact, rather than shutting it down, what I'm going to do is just go over to my VPC, and I'm just going to remove the root. It's going to be a lot simpler and cleaner. So my root is going to be in here, and click in roots, and it's this root here that's going over to the NAT gateway. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit save. That has now saved. Let's go back over to my EC2 instance. So I'm back in my EC2 instance, going to clear the screen again, and I'm going to run the exact same command, AWS S3 LS, and nothing's going to happen because there is no route out to my NAT gateway. So let's go in and provision a VPC endpoint. Okay, so I'm in the VPC dashboard. I'm going to go over to my endpoints and I'm going to go ahead and create an endpoint. It's very important to understand that endpoints come in two different varieties. So you've got an interface endpoint, and you can see here interface, and they're basically as an elastic network interface that's going to be attached to your EC2 instances, and that's going to serve as a point of entry for your traffic destined to the service. We now also have gateways, and gateways are very much just like what we've got with our NAT gateway. So it's not on a single interface or ENI, it's actually highly available and it's available to all the different services. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. I want the AWS S3 gateway. In here, we've got configure our route tables. So we need to go up to VPC and change it over to a Cloud Guru. And what we want to do is we want to associate it with our main route table. So this one, and we're going to click in here. We're choosing this one because it's not public. Our public one is the non-main one. So we'll go ahead and click in here. And then we're going to create a full access. In here, we get a little warning message, by the way, which says when you use an endpoint, the source IP addresses for your instance in your affected subnets for accessing the AWS service in the same region will be private IP addresses, not public IP addresses. So bear that in mind. So go ahead and create this endpoint. That will now create our S3 endpoint. We'll go ahead and hit close. If we go in and just have a quick look at our route tables and click on the one that's not our main route table and click on routes, we can now see this VPC endpoint in there. So let's go back over to our EC2 instance. And now I'm just going to type in AWS S3 LS. And look at that, we can see all of our buckets, but this is not behind a NAT gateway. This is only using a VPC endpoint gateway. So it is only going over the private network. It's not going over the public network. So that is it for this lecture, guys. If you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.